Again, great to see everybody. I'm excited to be here. I guess I'm the one usually introducing the guest speaker, but today that's me, and maybe I don't need any introduction, so we'll leave it at that. I'm proud to be the CEO of COO Forum, where I get to say I am now the CEO that I used to complain about when I was a COO. So
Mm.
I think maybe that's my calling card. I'm going to try to navigate through my share screens here, so give me a second. I will probably mess this up. Okay, and I'm going to go to slide view. You're going to see notes with it, and I'm going to swap screens. And now you should just be seeing the presentation. Does that look good? Seeing presentation, thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good. Yep.
All right, super. I've got a limited view of the participant screen, so if you need to, just blur it out, but we'll cover some ground rules here in a second. All right, so why this topic? Why now? I've been in operations for 40 years, give or take. Spent those early years of my career coming home after 12 to 16-hour work days, literally falling asleep in the middle of our apartment living room floor, still in my shirt and tie. Trying my hardest to help create a better place for my employees and the company, and I spent a lot of time away from my family. Fast forward to 2022, I came to CO Forum and had the opportunity to take the business on as our founder handed over the reins, and I jumped all in. My goal since that time has been to help you achieve more and maybe even prevent a few of you from passing out on the living room floor, maybe spend more time with your families, and ultimately help you become better leaders with better organizations. Here's my reality though. My last COO role ended in 2017. I thought my job was hard then. However, after joining CO Forum and hearing all the challenges around the table, especially kind of at the tail end of COVID, I realized my role was never as difficult as yours and as it is now. So I have the luxury of speaking with so many of you one-to-one in my own VFC Forum Chapter 1 meetings, as well as getting a chance to sit in a lot of other chapters. So I get to hear a lot of what you're going through. And while you're in the thick of things up to your necks some days, maybe most days for a few of you, I get to view it from a distance. I get to see your challenges from a different perspective. Often you don't have that luxury. Maybe if you carve out time to make it to your chapter meeting or connect with another member, but often you have to wake up the next day and get right back at it. No time to decompress or free up time to think about what's really going on without interruption. But I do. I get the chance to look down the horizon, collectively analyze conversations and insights, spot trends. So I feel it's my duty to prepare you for what's next. And I feel that we are on the precipice of a 100-time COVID level of change, and it's coming quicker than we give it time to prepare. So today, I want to leave you as a better leader. If I put you to sleep, it's my own fault, I guess. Over the next 60 minutes, I want your brain to be unleashed, all right? Freed up, give it space to say what's on your mind and don't hold back. We get so little time these days to just think. As Josh says at the CO Forum, this is a contact sport, not a spectator sport. You're in a safe environment with your peers, and together we're collectively called to support each other. That's what you signed up for when you signed up. I will take silence as thinking, not a problem. However, too much silence and I will start to randomly call on people. Participate, but be concise. Sometimes you might have to remind me to be concise, but let's be concise so everyone has a chance to get their thoughts in. Feel free to stop me with questions. I always say that an unasked question is a lost opportunity, and we don't have time for too many lost opportunities these days. Today's an exercise in exploration and preparation, not prescriptions. I'm going to give you my take on things. but your ideas are worth hearing as well, especially those that counter what I might be saying. So you have my permission to disagree today. If I sense a need to change up course a bit or spend more time on a particular topic, I will. We can jump on a second call at a later date if need be. I know where y'all live, so I'll just find you one with the other. Amanda, I might have to come search you out, but the rest of you, I know where you're from, so I'll find you. All right. So if you would, give me a word in the chat that describes your current mind. Where's everybody at? I'm going to do my best to see if I can't find the chat view here somehow. Okay, I think I see chat on my other screen. All right, give me some words. What do we got? All right, I've got overdrive, anxious, okay, all right. Determined, stressed. All right, Kat. I don't know if this is going to help today or not. Maybe it'll help. Scattered. Okay, you're describing me a little bit, Chris. Stretched, very common. Expanding, that's a good one. Connie, architect. All right, like it. Another stress. We got some stress going on here today on Friday. Let's see if we can change it up a little bit. Josh, puzzle. Are you puzzled or do you have a puzzle?
I'm leaving that up for interpretation.
You are a puzzle. Okay. Stressed, stretched, burnt out. All right. So we got some stress going on. We got maybe some burnout going on. So let's see if we can help that. At the very least, we're going to spend the next 60 minutes or so giving ourselves a chance to think. All right, this chart that you see in front of you, this is from Tim Urban, wrote a wonderful article a number of years ago called The AI Revolution, The Road to Superintelligence. It's really a thought-provoking recap of human intelligence from past to present to future. In this article, Tim highlights history's law of accelerating returns. It states that the progress in our human history moves quicker and quicker as time goes on because more advanced societies have the ability to progress at a faster rate than less advanced societies. So in other words, if you took a person from, say, 1500 and you placed them in the year 1750, they might be surprised at what they saw. But it would be far less disconcerting than going from 1750 to the year 2000. Both of those time periods, 250 years apart, but you can imagine the world of difference. So now imagine if you're born in 1971, before the personal computer, when a mobile phone meant walking down to the corner to use a payphone. Get it? Mobile, walking down to the phone, mobile. Fast forward to 1987, you see the battle of VHS and Betamax come to a bloody end with VHS winning out. So your VCR was very happy in 1987. You may have bought your first PC like a Commodore 64. You might have even started a users group like the Beaver County Area Commodore Users Group. Guilty. We did have 50 paying members at that time. Plus there was no internet, so we needed to do something. So imagine a person born in 1971. This person, like myself, has seen as much progress in the past 50 years as a person would have seen from the years 1500 to 1750. So that same 50-year period sees as much change as 250 years. That, again, is the law of accelerating returns. What will human society look like in 20 years? Probably mind-blowing. I don't know if I can even imagine it. But we're going to imagine some things in the next 5 years. So let me start with this proposition for everyone. And that is the COO role will be drastically different in 5 years. Possibly unrecognizable. All right, let me say that again. The COO role will be drastically different in 5 years. If you agree, put an exclamation in the chat box. If you disagree, put in an X. If you're unsure, you can put in a question mark. All right, we've got a bunch of exclamation points. No one disagrees with that. So you're already feeling it, huh? Yeah, it's coming quick. So we're going to pressure test this concept over the next few slides. And this is really where we can open up some discussion with the group. So let's get on with it. We're going to take a little walk down memory lane. All right. Um, and really talk about what were operations like. And so on the left, the very left, you'll see magnetic reel-to-reel tape backup machines. All right. You're going to see the precursor to office email, which was the interdepartmental mail. And lastly, you're going to see a CAD system. All right, so in the chat, put the year that you think this was from. We'll see how many good historians there are here. We'll also see who might be on the younger side. We got 1982, 84, 89, 86, 78, 88, 85, question mark, 1990. All right, okay. So we got some good guesses. And some of these things, you know, they fluctuate from year to year, but the year's 1989. Why did I choose 1989? Well, I was a co-op student at General Motors that year, and my job was to replace those reel-to-reel backup tapes. And that CAD was very much like the Applicon system that I had in the engineering department. So 1989. So raise your hand if you were leading or in operations in 1989. And I'm going to widen my screen up here. Raise your hand again. Let me see. Anyone? All right, Laurie. It might just be me and you. Anyone else? Come on, Paul. I see those gray hairs. All right, Laurie. What was it like to lead or be in operations in 1989?
Well, so I guess I was leading operations in 1989. I was going to say I was only in operations, but I was leading. It was manual. Everything was manual. At the time, I was in asset and portfolio management. And to give you a small example, a huge example, the leadership of my company appeared in my office one day and set this thing down on my desk and said, "Here, we want you to figure this out because you're the youngest member of the team, and you're going to tell us all how to use this computer."
A computer.
Yeah. If I was probably before 89, that might have been like 84, 85. But still in 89, I think we were just getting to the point where we were entering data into the local computer that was not connected to, because we were scattered site, that was not connected right to a mainframe. There was no such thing as the cloud. And then we take a floppy disk and bring it to headquarters or send it to headquarters, and then they would consolidate and, you know, generate reports and do all the things that they needed to do. So it was still very manual and a lot of paper.
Yeah, a lot of paper.
The interdepartmental mail, I would get those every Friday.
Yeah, and if you read it, then you had to cross your name
off. Cross it off and use it for the next guy.
And send it on. What was, I guess, what was the workforce like then? And anyone else can chime in on this. What do you think the workforce was like in 1989? And you can draw comparisons to today. What was the workforce like?
I would take to say not as sophisticated, but certainly not as technically challenged, right? Because things were still much more manual. Sure. You know, maybe almost simple, compartmentalized, right? Because you had specializations in the things that you did. You didn't quite have as much ability to touch multiple things in an organization because of the way that we were so manual in our operations.
This was really the age, and maybe it was the beginning of the end of the age where knowledge was power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a power broker in an organization, people came to you. You had to be politically savvy a little bit more than you have to do today. That hasn't gone away, unfortunately, but to advance in your career took a little more political savviness. How much business intelligence do you think businesses had back in 1989? Just a fraction compared to what we have now, right?
My thoughts keep going back to it was slower. So because you didn't have that. Granted, I was graduating middle school, so I'm not quite as young, but not quite as old. But you know, the you didn't have all the information at your fingertips. And so when you wanted to go, business was slower. I
Yeah.
can't remember when the fax machines, I think were night, but when you were mailing things, like you were just saying, you had to go and walk it over to that other building to
Yeah.
hand it. Yeah, I do remember seeing those forms. No, I haven't actually used them, but I know I remember seeing those because
Yeah.
everything had to be moved. So the pace was
Oh,
slower
Yeah.
because
yeah.
everything had to be like hand delivered. And yeah, you go back to the movies, you have a person that delivers the mail or delivers they had the cart, and then you're walking around the office handing out the messages. But it was the pace, I feel like, was slow.
It was about as slow as this presentation is going right now, huh? Yeah. Yeah. It was that slow. Yeah. It was terrible. Um,
There's another little, this is not as on point, but everybody wore suits and ties. Do you remember
Yes.
that? I was just starting to work at this time. All the men had on suits and ties. The women had on pantyhose and heels.
Dresses. Yes.
Mhm.
Always heels.
Yeah, you had
Mhm.
to look the part. How you dressed was very important back in 1989 if you wanted to climb the so-called corporate ladder. All right, good, great discussion. All right, let's get this show going here. So let's continue this walk down memory lane. Put in the chat what year you think this was from. We've got the interdepartmental mail still hanging on with for dear life. We still have dummy AS400 black and green terminals out on the factory floor with the infamous green and white bar tractor fed wide format printouts. And computers start to really proliferate in the office. They're almost becoming ubiquitous at this point. All right, so we've got 94, 99, 93, 91. Okay, all right, all right. Year 1999. So it's 1999 because it's when the PC really defined its rapid rise thanks to the internet. Back then, the mighty beige box PC dominated. So we had Windows 98s, the top tier machines boasted Pentium 3 processors. Sit down for this because they had 64 to 128 megabits of RAM and 10 to 20 gig hard drives. So raise your hand if you were leading operations in 1999. I think we're going to pick up a few more people. Okay. All right. All right, good. So what were some of the top skills you needed to be a leader in 1999? Look at telephone. Oh, Lori's laughing at the telephone on the desk. Yeah, that's a good one. What were top skills, do you think, in 1999 if you were a leader in 1999? Computer proficiency from John. Yep, good one.
So it was the start. I sold my I had a 1970 Volkswagen Bug, and I needed to buy a new computer because I needed to know how to use Windows 95. And so I sold my car. I had bought a new car because the VW Bug wasn't hanging in there anymore. And I sold that so I
Right.
could buy a computer so I could learn Windows 95 to get a job, to make
Yeah.
sure I knew how to use the operating system. So learning how to navigate and leverage the internet was definitely where it was important. Yeah, I started at I've been at our RTI for I started in June of 1998.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
just about to hit 28 years. So
Wow. So yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, computer proficiency was a thing. John said that he got his first email address then, so and he's still using it.
That's funny.
It's a Yahoo email, right? Um, so what are some other
I
skills?
was, Chuck, I was on the Y2K committee.
Oh
I was,
yes,
remember that?
yes. Who survived the Y2K pandemic? Yeah, we've got some proud survivors here. Yeah, everything was gonna shut down, blow up. Yeah, no more money, no more society.
Yeah, that's
Um,
how, the industry got us to all buy new computers.
exactly. It was a smart move on their part.
It was a really smart move.
1201, January 1st, 2000
Mhm.
happened. It was so unspectacular.
Yes.
Kat says I had to send out letters to our saying our software would work. Okay, all right. Blackberries. Ah, yeah, Blackberries. The PDA started to show up, huh? Who had a BlackBerry? Okay, all right. Who had pagers? If you worked in a factory, you probably had a pager, or if maybe some offices, if you're in a big office building, pages, right? So you can start to see the evolution just in that 10 years between, non-computer life to computer life. So starting to pick up. All right, we're going to keep walking down this. We'll see if you pick up a trend here. So we got the AS400 on the left-hand side. We've got the proliferation of robots in factories and larger scale factories. And then we have laptops showing up. What year was this? We got 2009, 2005, 2003, 2009. Okay, some of you might be thinking I'm doing every 10 years, but I'm going to burst your bubble. Oh yeah, see that, Sarah? She's going with 2009. So it was actually 2006. So that I chose 2006 because it was my last go around with the infamous IBM AS400. Anyone here an AS400 user? Familiar with them? Yeah, no, okay, all right. Oh yeah, John, Dan, yeah, Dan, of course, yeah. Robots were again pretty prevalent by that point on a large scale. But then laptops. So what did the laptop usher in from a leadership perspective? What did a laptop do to all you leaders in 2006?
I had a laptop in '99 as a freshly minted auditor for the Big Eight back then, and they told me it's because I can work virtually. And then the first snowstorm, because I was still in Wisconsin at that time around tax season, and I called in and said, "Hey, I'm snowed in. I can't get out of my house." And they said, "No worries. You have your laptop. All you need to do is just dial in." And then I realized working virtual means I'm virtually working all the time.
All the time. Yeah, you were ahead of your
That
time
that
in
was
1999.
Yes, that was year one on the job, and I was like, "Oh, got it. That's why my neck and
Mhm.
my hands are so heavy, because I have shackles on them."
Yeah, yeah. So we got tricked into having this wonderful new device on our desk, and we thought, "Wow, this is great! It's faster than that old beige IBM box that I used to have. Now I got this slick-looking thing, and they gave me a case. How cool is that? I get to carry it around with me." And then you finally caught on to the fact that it's so you could take your work home. Ability to work 24/7, mobility. This is Suzanne. Also meant you had to be on call at all times. Yeah, I remember being on call at all times. The expectation that you're going to answer your emails as they come in. Emails weren't quite as prolific as they are now, but they were certainly there. Dialing in from home. Rob says always on, always available. So in 2006, what were some of the top leadership skills in 2006? Let's hear from the group. Who's leading in 2006? Show of hands. Most people. Amanda, you wanna jump in and share what you think some top leadership skills were in 2006?
From an operator's perspective, it was all about still driving and getting things done. It was less about the strategy and visioning. It was the demand of producing. It's
Yeah,
all about production.
yeah, yeah. I remember I was a manager in 2006, and I so desperately wanted to be working on strategic level things. But man, the day-to-day grind just kept pulling me back in. Some of us haven't moved from that in the 18, 19, or 20 years since. But yeah, definitely the work output was big, right? Who here started to need to learn how to interpret data for the first time? Excel spreadsheets, right? What was that like? What was it like before, this proliferation of data? And then all of a sudden, boom, data.
Interesting time period here. This 2006 is the year that I started at Energy Access. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm celebrating 20 years here. And when I came in, it's funny you bring up Excel, because when I came in, all the processes were still done on paper and via fax machine and making copies, and had file cabinets sitting absolutely everywhere for documents that nobody was ever going to look at again. And my immediate task was to move all that to something that was truly data driven, and Excel was the tool. So kind of moving everything into some form of data that you could actually use, even though it wasn't SQL at the time, but it was using the tools that we had available, but getting away from people using pencil to paper and then having a controlled document that lives in a fireproof safe that nobody can ever open because if you pull that document out, it's going to be outdated, of course. So yeah, it's interesting that you say 2006 because that's when I started here. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we start to see the increase in use of data. That starts to proliferate, right? We start to see more enterprise level software subscriptions. By 2006, I'd already survived multiple ERP implementations, both Oracle and Dynamics AX, I think in 2006. Maybe that came later, actually. Yeah, so we start to see the large enterprise software, right? All right.
And so in 2006 we got Salesforce. So that you were talking about like what the shift was, that was a cloud-based, nothing on-prem. And so I feel like that was the shift also to more the start of the cloud-based software, the SaaS subscription. It was SaaS products didn't quite exist just yet, but we were starting to shift over. And actually, just yesterday, I'm having to go through a bunch of old papers, and am I allowed to throw out and recycle or shred the 2000 to 2006 paper files? And it was like, yeah, that because it was, and they finally realized, why do I still have those? Because it was pre-Salesforce. So
Right.
like in that 2006 timing, because I think if I'm not mistaken that Google was founded somewhere like they were just starting to take off also. So it was that shift to the SaaS products were starting to come out, which is starting to shift to where the data, making it easier from an IT standpoint. So yeah, that was a
Absolutely.
start.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we started to get hit pretty hard with everything, of course, internet and Googling and everything else for sure. All right, now we're going to speed things up a little bit. So we're going to guess the picture on the left. So for some of you, this is what's called an office. And it's where people used to go in large numbers to sit down at desks and work, uh, fully dressed in their work clothing, and took 45-minute lunches at the local eatery, right? And on the right, we're gonna see what happens, right? February 2020. What was significant about February 2020?
COVID.
COVID. March 2020, everything changes, right? Everything changes. Who was leading operations February 2020? Who would like to go back to leading operations in February 2020? Wow, I'm surprised. Okay.
You mean like
Well,
pre-pandemic?
yeah, pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I'd go back to that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you might go back to that. Yeah, you don't want the pandemic, but you're gonna do pre-pandemic. Okay, all right. So we get some hand raises on that. What was it like leading operations in March of 2020? In fact, March of 2020 through like June 2021. What was going on? What were you working on?
Required, yeah, absolutely required some significant decisiveness.
Yeah, yeah. Who had lockdowns, quarantines, offices shut down, factories shut down, cities, states shut down, right? How many people have tried to forget those times? How many people say it feels like a lifetime ago, right? It feels like a long time ago. We had you'll still walk into a place where you see the little footprint stickers on the floor where you had to line up and keep your distance and everything. So think about how just in an instant, something like a pandemic changed everything, right? How did it impact you as a leader, your emotions, your life? Obviously, there was the human tool, both family and um, friends, coworkers, all of that, right? How did that affect you as a leader coming out of COVID? I'd like to hear from a few of you. What changed?
I didn't have much on the personal or on the macro level because my business was mostly remote prior to that
Yeah.
anyways. So if anything, it was an accelerator to us because it unlocked our ability to get access to to nationwide talent, top talent at the same cost. So it was a good cost driver for us and a great opportunity for us to upskill because we were no longer beholden to going to the client's office. So from that, COVID was the best thing. It was an accelerator for us in our business.
So it
And I
became
think,
a competitive advantage for you.
oh, yeah,
Yeah,
100%, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And it just demonstrated that we can do, technical consulting, cybersecurity consulting, and security consulting remotely.
yeah,
Duh, cybersecurity, right?
yeah,
So we don't have to be there with our clients anymore. So, that I think unlocked a lot, but it also unlocked a level of global communication in a pace where everybody, judges, lawyers, doctors, patients, nurses, were all connect. People who were very much wedded to the face-to-face connection. And everybody all at once had to connect through Teams, through video conference. And it just exposed the entire world to that personal connection through, instant communication. And what it also did on a societal level is it really demonstrated the inequities where
yeah,
the American workforce was, in our nice homes with our 12-foot ceilings and our fireplace and mantle. And my colleague in India was in a hallway with people walking past him, and that was called his house and that was his bedroom.
yes.
So, seeing that level of inequities amongst the workforce was also very eye-opening.
Yeah, 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 it was. And it definitely disrupted business models at the time, right? As you mentioned, became a competitive advantage. Um, so other thoughts, how did it affect you? I see there's some good stuff in the chat, so take a look at what you see in the chat.
I,
Anyone want to come off
I
the
think
top?
one of the most interesting things that happened to us is we had certain groups that were largely in person, like for example, our people ops team. And we sort of created this tiger team of folks that were used to managing or were used to working with distributed teams about how we do things. Something simple like brainstorming. They were lost like on a planning meeting, right?
Right.
And I remember talking to our head of people operations, and she was like, "I'm just not sure what to do. Like, do we do it in Zoom? Do we do whatever?" And I was like, "Let me show you this thing called Lucid Chart. We've been doing this with at that time it was my cybersecurity team. We've been doing roadmap planning like this for 2.5 years because we were already distributed." And so there was this sort of interesting opportunity to teach inside the company. And as people ended up coming back to the office, there was sort of, I think, a lot more understanding, at least in our company, of some of the challenges with managing distributed teams versus in-person teams as well.
Yeah, so two things there, right? So just like Connie, some of you are already ahead of that curve in that you had already begun to experiment with distributed workforces. You were leveraging the power of the internet and the web and the cloud, and you had remote workforces. And some of you may already been using Zoom, or what was before Zoom? What was the video platform?
Skype was a big one.
Skype. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
WebEx.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Skype me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one, because you were ahead of the curve from a business model perspective, you were able in some cases to maybe even pick up market share. Like Connie said, it was the best times for you. For others, it was terrible. And Travis, you were in manufacturing in 2020, 22?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was in manufacturing and different company than I am today, but chemical manufacturing. So we saw a huge increase in operations. I mean, we were supplying disinfectant sanitizers. We started supplying hand sanitizers, which we weren't doing before, but we were doing disinfectants. Um, so our internal operations, we just changed how we like everybody was wearing masks to work.
Yeah.
We changed different things about screening people to get in and out of the plant, but we went from a 5-day operation to working 7 days a week most days because
Yeah.
we was
Yeah.
trying to keep up with the demand.
Yeah, if you think of the number of companies that all of a sudden took advantage of the lack of supply for medical supplies, started making masks and hand sanitizers and all those things,
Yeah.
it was quite
Yep.
quite the thing. Remember
That
having go ahead.
Travis just reminded me. I mean, how could we forget the global supply chain crisis?
Yeah,
Right.
With all the containers parked out of LA, right?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, to get a microchip was like, you had the winning Willy Wonka golden ticket.
Yeah, yeah. We had to talk through masks to people, and you
Yep.
lost facial expression and context, and it was tough to pick up emotions in our discussion. So yeah, it
What
was.
we also was what was, I think, the ultimate takeaway and tipping point culturally, West versus East, is that Western lifestyle and economy and governments realized how dependent we were on Eastern manufacturing, and
Right.
it's spawned a whole new era of the tariff wars that we are now in right now, and the nationalism rise on the West that we see is directly, you can almost draw a straight line to COVID and that eye-opening moment of, oh crap, we are over leveraged on Eastern manufacturing. What are we doing? It's time for us to stop being a service industry and we have to start producing and manufacturing our own.
Yeah, yeah, big shift. So
Huge.
it affected business models for sure, and the effects lasted today. I mean, I remember when I first joined the CO Forum back in 2022, a lot of discussion around the table at that time. This was February, March of 2022. Was everyone was still trying to figure out, well, what's your workforce policy for remote workers? How do you give time off? How do you know that you're doing what you're doing? All of those things, right? I mean, it was a lot about trying to figure that out. Fast forward to today, and I don't hear those conversations so much. There's still the element of making sure that building good, strong culture across distributed workforce, but by and large, everyone on the call has figured out how to manage that new dynamic. So you adapt. You had to adapt pretty quick, right? Okay, let's keep on moving here. We got just to put this in perspective. So in 1989, the Cray supercomputer located in NASA Langley was the best, fastest thing you could get in 1989. Today, it would take 1,000 Cray supercomputers to match the computing power and that chip that's going on in your teenage daughter's hand. And those phones are everywhere. So think about that from a technology perspective. When we go back to the law of accelerating, it was innovation, or I forget what it's called now, but think about what happened just in the past 40 years, right? Amazing amount of progress. All right, so I'm gonna one more walk down memory lane, and then we're gonna get into it. So we'll see if there's any technical nerds out there. What was life like at 11:37 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, November 30th, 2022?
Pre-chat GPT.
Connie for the win. A minute later, ChatGPT was released by OpenAI
Yep.
at 11:38. Has anyone's lives been affected by that date?
So not on that date, but I asked Chat, when did I start using you? And it told me, well, I don't have access to your free logs, but you bought me on January 1st of 2023. So
Okay,
so I must have been an early adopter.
early adopter.
And then I went back and I looked up and said, okay, well, when did you come online? And it gave me this answer. That's how I knew that.
Good one, good one. So in the chat, put the year, maybe the month, if you remember, that you began using ChatGPT.
Mhm.
So we had Connie, kind of an early adopter. Now, ChatGPT was actually available prior to that, but not really on a large scale public use. Let's see, 2024, January 1st. There we go. March 2023, another early adopter, some March. Sarah, 2025. She's like, this thing's gonna fold. It's not gonna happen, right? Sarah was kind of waiting it out a little bit. 2025, 2024. So somewhere between 2023, 2024. We've got a couple of 2025s. I'm happy to see no 2026s. No.
The difference is I was living in San Francisco at that time. So, and I was heavily networking with some of I was in an AI business. So I was networking amongst some of going to the presentations of the AI godfathers at that time. So
Yeah, you were like in tech nerd heaven.
I was in tech nerd heaven
Yeah,
at that. Yeah,
yeah,
I was there just like I was on the trading floor of a CMBS firm. on that fateful week of 2008 when CMBS went flat, and I could hear a pin drop with 100 coder with 100 investors and bankers on the floor. So I was at ground zero.
Oh, so tell me, what are the leadership skills, the top leadership skills you think you need right now?
Ask the right
May
questions.
May 15th, 2026. Let's
Ask the right questions, debate, 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 challenge, and storytelling.
All right. All right, good. Good. I like those. Others? Silence, that means you're thinking. Silence is taking too long. Uh-oh, it's getting painful. Diana wants to come off of mute.
You could see it in my face. Well, I was
It's
thinking back to the COVID discussion, and I think what COVID changed for me is acceptance that there's always something new to learn. That was partly
okay.
because I had only been a COO since the middle of 2019, so that was
Okay.
fun timing. But I think that is just the theme that's continued for me. It's I'm never going to know anything, which is hard, I think, for this group of high achieving type A people, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Josh, I think, said curiosity in the chat. It's related. So
Yeah.
that's,
Learning, curiosity.
yeah.
And
I
to kind of
think
wrap
I
up
think a
my
big thing for us has been driving this builder mentality across the company, not just to engineers, right? And it's, I think for a lot of folks, it's sort of like giving people that don't have a technical background permission to build things. Like it's like you have great ideas. Use the context and the experience you have and just go experiment and build things, right? The cost of failure is very low in
Mhm.
that sense, right? And obviously there is security concerns with a lot of those things. But we're trying to implement guardrails as best as we can to sort of encourage that sort of mentality, right? It's more builder mindset, right?
Yeah, build a mindset that goes along with the creating some curiosity to learn. I think Max has intentionality, alignment, storytelling, same as Connie with the storytelling. Um, Paul
I
says,
actually had this conversation with Chat, and I asked it, what is the next most critical skill that the human race needs to develop, and why? And
did it
what
say
is
buy
AI?
more Chat GPT subscription?
Yeah, pretty much.
I knew
Uh,
it.
no, it basically said now that we have manufactured intelligence, so everybody's IQ points have raised by 50 to 100 points. And that's huge. When everybody is more intelligent, so the average, the 75, the C, the solid C of scoring of intelligence has all risen up. So now we're all at average. So us, the leaders and the high performers and A type personalities, everyone else is leveling up to us. So now our next to differentiate ourselves is how do we distinguish ourselves when everybody has the same level of intelligence and access to that intelligence? We have manufactured it holistically, just like we manufactured the wheel and we've
Right.
manufactured the assembly of cars and the printing press. We've manufactured intelligence and communication, and with the internet, now we've manufactured human cognitive intelligence. So what is going to differentiate ourselves? And when every problem can be solved, the challenge of the future is going to be what are the right problems to solve and why, and to challenge and to find that debate, think deeply, ponder,
Yeah.
and to have more of a philosophical approach of how should we be solving our world problems and why, and what is best for humanity. I think we need to be asking more thought-provoking, deep questions, because now all the activity, the busy work that we've been keeping ourselves, pushing papers, the manual, to just pushing emails, to pushing journal entries, to fixing systems, all of that is going to be fixed by AI. So what is that unique skill set that we have left as humans? And I think it's governance. I think it's vision, it's storytelling, it's debating, and thinking deeply about humanity and what is right for how the world that we want to live in, and how can we forge our way towards that.
Perfect segue into where we're headed next. Thank you for that, Connie. That's a perfect segue. Let me repeat this. The COO role will be drastically different in 5 years. Let me say it again, write it down. The COO role will be drastically different in 5 years. If you agree, I guess everyone had an exclamation point the first time. I was going to say, If you now agree, if you change your mind, go ahead and drop that in the chat. But all right, let's do this. I think I broke a Guinness Book of World Record in that it took me 12 slides to finally get to the agenda. But here we are. This is what we're going to cover in rapid pace, the fastest 30 minutes in ops. And that is, we're going to take a look at my take on the top 3 leadership skills that COOs are going to need for the future. We're going to dig into those. We're going to talk about what it takes to implement those skills and closing a gap, and why I think decision architecture might be your competitive moat. I think Connie touched upon that a bit, pondering thinking. And then lastly, how leveraging your peers might be all of our best collective survival tool. All right. Okay. This is my take. I might be wrong. I might be partly correct. We'll see. But let's talk through these and let's pressure test them. So I totally made up this word with the help of AI. Cybernetic symbiosis. All right. So before I tell you what it is, in chat, I want you to put a Y, type in a Y if you've ever disagreed with AI and you've argued with it in your head. So if you've done that, put an exclamation point down. If you've ever yelled at it out loud, okay, I want you to put an exclamation point. So if you've screamed at AI out loud, I want you to put an exclamation point. If you're now afraid of the people that are putting down an exclamation point, drop an A in the chat. All right, I'm seeing a lot of Y's. I never scream, I only debate. A. I'm with you, Josh. I'm a little worried. I see a Y. Yeah, right? So we're having that moment already. Already we're having that moment. We might have been yelling at the computer screen in 1989 or 1999 for a different reason. This is a whole new reason that we're yelling at the computer screen right now. So what is cybernetic symbiosis? It's the ability to foresee the interplay between humans, or in some cases we'll call them employees, and the technology, whether on screen or a humanoid, and be capable of planning and building processes and systems to maximize the collaboration of both. So think about that. That's our role as a leader now. We're hurtling towards this environment where we're going to have to play, in some cases, peacemaker between humans and technology. So think about this. Are you prepared to handle human to AI agent conflicts? Was that on your radar screen? Were you even thinking about that? Right? What about humans working alongside humanoids? So 2026, 2027, we're seeing the first initial commercial releases of humanoids, right? So we got the Tesla Optimus. You're starting to see that out on social media, see those robots doing amazing choreographed things, and you see them starting to test in kitchens and all those things. 2028 through 2030, this is the beginning of the mass adoption, the mass commercial adoption and wealthy homes. So in 2028, 2030, we are going to start to see humanoid robots appearing in businesses, in wealthy households at a much higher number. Then by 2035, the prediction is, and beyond, 2035 and beyond, is the mainstream adoption or the widespread adoption of in-home humanoid robots. And then according to an MIT article that was published in April of last year, it says that AI persona management, so think about that, AI persona management will become a new responsibility for leaders. Everyone on this call is going to be responsible on how you shape your company's AI agent personalities to fit the organization and its culture. Did anyone see that coming? So think about it. Are you ready to deal with the conflict management and this performance, AI and performance in the age of AI?
I look at AI like a toddler right now, a very intelligent protege, but it's still a toddler and it lacks senses of the world. It for a large portion lacks taste. It absolutely lacks taste and smell. And for a large portion lacks sight and hearing. Now we're already working on the VLMs, the visual language models. So those are already in play. It is getting sight now. So now Helen Keller is getting her vision, right? So that's a little scary, but it's learning in the same way that humans learn. It's through trial and error and debate. And I'm training my workforce because we have 157 agents that are ready to deploy, where we're going to start dropping them in towards the end of this quarter. It'll be fully deployed by the end of the year. And I'm telling my workforce, you need to train them as you would be training an intern, as if it was your child, and how you want to coach and guide them. Our morality and our value code and our judgment has to be imprinted into AI. We have to be very conscious of how we speak to it and what we give it and how we challenge them. Think of this as a young Einstein at your footstep. You have the ability to impart your value system and how you see the world into the future.
Yeah, let me
So
stop
be
you
very
right.
aware.
Let me stop you right there, Connie. And that's great, right? So there's an example right there where you're already having to address that
Excellent.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else is already beginning to think about that symbiotic relationship between AI and your human workforce? Have you thought about how you're going to deal when an employee complains that the humanoid is staring at them, accusing them of videotaping them? Have you thought about it? Megan, that's coming. That's going to land on your desk one of these days soon, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
Because we've all dealt with the two people already complaining about each other, staring at each other, or getting into their business. What's going to happen when that humanoid is hovering over you at your work desk, or an AI agent pops up and says, "Hi, Sally. How are you doing, Sally? Just checking in on you," right? So, what happens when humanoids start to disregard our commands, or they start because it clashes with its internal protocols? Who owns the corrective action, right? Josh? Have you thought about that?
It's gross. It's really, really gross. Yeah, it is fascinating. As you were talking through this in the early stage of this slide, what I was thinking was like this is shifting what is known as the messy middle, right? It's where, when we start talking even job description, and where does the human work transfer over to the technology, and then it comes back, and what does it mean when it comes back, and who's responsible for that piece, even just digging into the logistics of how work is done. And that's before you get side eye from the robot sitting beside you, right? I mean, there's lots of things that are interesting in that. I'm always a proponent of, like, the messiness isn't in the work and the task. The messiness is in the handoffs, right? The messiness is within that, like, process interaction, human relationship piece. And now you've got this other unknown in that messy middle that, I mean, there's no way to ignore it, right? You can't ignore it. And the odd thing is there's going to be feelings around it that are all one-sided, right? Like how in the world, like it's one thing to sit two human beings down and like step them through resolution. Now you have to sit one person down and basically it's all it's all their fault and how they're feeling, right? Like that's such a difficult conversation to even consider having. Like how do you come to conflict resolution there?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So look at the first diagram on the left, right? So the diagram that I have there on the left, this is what companies are beginning to do right now. You're starting to drop in these agents, right? So in this example, we have a product agent. It could be a manufactured good, maybe it's a piece of software, but you've got your customer out there. You've got that customer service entity right now. It has an important role. It's the go between the customer and in the product or whatever it may be. And then you've got production, you've got product development, you've got vendors that are all. And you can see the communication back and forth. what we're already beginning to see is this shift where these agents are going to begin to take on larger and larger roles within the work. So when you think about from the customer contact perspective, the customer is going to start to, just be directly dialed into this product agent. So the customer service role is going to shrink. They may only be there for escalations, right? They're the human in the loop for escalations. Then you look on a product development side. Now all of a sudden the vendor is doing to your product development team what we're doing to our customers, in that instead of calling up Sally, right? You used to be able to call up Sally if you're in the dev team and say, hey, Sally, hey, how was your trip to Florida? Oh, great. How's the kids doing? Wonderful. Hey, I got a question for you. We got this piece of code that's hanging up. Now this vendor is going to put this product agent in front of you. So they're walling Sally off. Maybe Sally's even gone, but at the very least, they're putting this AI interface. How are your product development engineers going to handle that? Right? Have you thought about that? How's the organization going to handle the downsized role of customer service? I'm looking over here at the chat. Victoria, has anyone ran into issues with Meta glasses or any other wearable tech? I love it, right? Yeah, that's a part of this as well. That's already beginning to pop up. Has anyone had an issue with Meta glasses? No? It's coming. It's coming. Dr. Williams, it's coming.
Chuck, I know you come from manufacturing. I saw some really cool tech that were kind of glasses oriented, but basically it superimposed the work instruction over your bench, and you were able to actually see, like you just basically had to follow the instruction as it happened in a video in your screen and put the pieces together. It's fascinating to see that tech.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we start thinking about this cybernetic symbiosis, and maybe we'll either make this word famous at COO Forum and everyone will be calling it cybernetic symbiosis. We'll come up with a better name. So if you've got a better name, put it in the chat. But the reality is all of us on the call are going to have to start dealing with these friction points between humans and technology, right? And not just on-screen agents, but actual humanoids that are going to start to talk, sound, have personalities, maybe even a chippy attitude, right? John Winter, when he's programming his personality for his humanoid, he's going to give it a bit of a chippy attitude. Keep everybody sharp, right? Keep everybody on their toes. So one of the first things you need to do is you need to start benchmarking right now. What are those human relationships to tech? So map those interactions like I did, sketch it out. But you need to begin to start to think about that if you aren't already. And then, start to think about building communication and learning strategies that reinforce positive outcomes while acknowledging those challenging journeys. So, when I started a section off, I'd asked the question, who here has disagreed with AI? Who has even screamed at AI, right? How are you going to handle employees that say, well, I don't trust this agent? Because they're already preconditioned to the hallucination that's going on AI. You're going to find yourself now having to take one for the team, as we used to call it, and explain why this new technology is important and why you need to trust it and the reason why you need to come along for that journey. Did you see that happening in 1989, 1990, 2006, 11:37 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, November 30th, 2020? We didn't see that coming, did we, right? So you see where this is going. Stay in front of the journey, right? We've got to stay on top of the technology that's coming in. We don't need to be experts in the technology. We're going to talk about this in a few slides, but at the very least, you've got to stay in front of what's coming down the pipeline. And then lastly, if you don't already have great change management frameworks, and I think probably most of us by this point in our careers, we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the seats that we're in. So we're all already pretty good at change management. But I want you to think about how change management is going to change in the age of AI. Have you thought about that? Some of you are already experiencing it. So you're getting your first opportunities to learn and practice. Kat?
Pretty sure there's an AI bot for that, right?
Josh says, I don't need change management. I'm just going to get a bot for that.
Go over, just use a bot, whatever.
Yeah, we may just plug that in. Yeah. Go ahead, Kat.
I was say I think that's becoming more important because you have the generations. It's all the not even just necessarily generations, but people's willingness to work with it is all over the place. So I'm the pace is also faster. So a lot of our blockers is having to deal with the change management and getting people to adapt to all of these new technologies and way to do business or way to do work faster. So one of my biggest challenge is change management.
Yeah. Yeah, the speed. So when we think about the speed of change, it's almost by the time we get done introducing the first agents in our companies, that technology might be blown up and obsolete. If you think about how quickly things are moving. Go ahead, Dan. You're off.
Yeah, I think another thing is also accountability. And so we've started to run into this. So we have like, the legal agent, the compliance agent, and like obviously. And so there's some level of communication between these agents where they reach a conclusion. But we ran into issues where it's like, compliance and legal are pointing fingers at each other, right? And the engineer who wrote whatever the uncompliant thing is like, well, your agents told me to do it. So it's like, who is ultimately accountable? And as this scales, right, there's like a human in the loop right now, but as this scales, like, can they keep up with
Yeah.
this, right? That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think just like early on when the computers started hitting manufacturing or it started to, proliferate in the offices, I remember having conversations with employees where they say, well, that's what the computer did. I just put in what I was supposed to. That's not I'm not responsible for that. Like, because it was such a new technology, people could hide behind that technology when performance issues pop up. Everyone on this call is going to be dealing with that in short order and in massive ways. So I don't know if you saw that coming, but it's here. All right. The second totally made up term to try to capture in what I'm seeing happening out there, and that's called the ecosystem fluidity management. That's a mouthful. We'll call it EFM, right? So, the prime domain of COOs on the left has been the org chart. Having that deep understanding of the organization, the interplay, the ability to create systems and processes, drive performance and efficiencies, KPIs, transformation, executing a vision, right? This is our bread and butter. Predictable chaos, as I call it. Never a dull moment. So what happens when traditional business models, get completely rewritten? The question is, will the traditional org chart even survive another 5 years? If Jill Chirala was on the call, she would tell you that she already has a half a dozen agents on the org chart. So imagine that. So ecosystem fluidity is the ability to manage the fluid nature of all of these variable relationships, right, between our primary stakeholders and technology, vendor and markets, customers. So that's a new skill set that is fast upon us. So, what will human work look like when agentic AI, for instance, becomes autonomous intelligent systems with continuous learning and optimization? How are you managing that thing? Are you yourself, adaptable? How adaptable are your skills? We're going to talk about this in a second, but can you mentally make the rapid pivots in your mind? Challenge your mental models when we grew up doing a thing on the left, and now we're having to find new ways of navigating new business models, like you see on the right. So when we go back to this model that we have here with the product agents starting to pop in. One of the first steps obviously is mapping that arrangement, but imagine as it starts to transform, we're also going to be dealing with tremendous government and industry regulations, right? We know that's coming. Some of you, if you've ever been, kind of well, I guess you've been in the automotive industry. I remember when the big auto, the big three back in the day. I think Ignacio Lopez was the new General Motors supplier management chief officer, whatever his title was at the time. But they went to this open supplier model where you had to put all of your costs, all of your designs, everything out into a portal. In your price, everything, your labor cost, your material cost, everything totally exposed out in the open, off to General Motors, and they beat you down in the name of innovation for price. And so you basically, that whole model shifted to, before you had intellectual property, you had special processes, you had all of these things that allowed you to create a pricing model. And overnight, Ignacio Lopez changed it to a cost plus small margin, and it was the volume play. And they've never looked back since. What's going to happen when markets, your customers, start to subscribe to market agents in your product and services? You're no longer even talking to your customer. You're supplying all of your information to a market agent. In fact, you probably have your company agent doing that for you. And various customers are plugged into that market. Competitors are plugged into that market. Do you think that's going to change business models? What do you think? What change in skills are you going to need to have to navigate that? Some EFM. Is anyone seeing these changes starting to occur in their industry already? Curious. Not yet. Do you believe that this is possible? This roadmap that I'm putting in front of you is possible?
I think that's really interesting. I could see it going the way of, say, the stock market, where you're always evolving towards perfect market efficiency when information is free and freely available. If that translates over into the wider business market, I mean, there's margins disintegrate. Everything is perfectly efficient then, in 20 years or whatever the timeline is. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so think about the new ecosystems. They're going to start popping up all over the place, right? Companies are going to consolidate, absorb, shrink, reform, expand, pivot. The barrier to entry to start a business right now is, a few AI agents and product and distribution, and you're in business. The barrier to entries, your competitive moats are shrinking dramatically. Not just product and services, but people and so forth, right? So are you prepared for that? Are you having these types of conversations around the table at your business? Dan says, how will you trust the agent you're sharing data with? Exactly, right? Back to the trust factor. Josh, we're too busy dealing with tariffs. Yeah. A lot of solopreneurs, right?
May change, like, the idea of what are humans actually going to be doing. So is it a silo of a single human that is the gatekeeper of all the tech, right? So, I mean, I could see that being a scenario where the org chart obviously would end up with, that's why I think we're in a situation where, there could be just a lot of solopreneurs out there that have an idea, they build bots to do all the work. And scaling looks like, hey, I'm now at a point where I, as a human, can't manage the number of bots I have. I need somebody else that can help me manage this piece of it. But really, it's the bots doing all of the actual value add work.
Right.
And that certainly changes the org chart significantly, right? Because then it's, what does that reporting structure even look like? So yeah, I think there's a lot of things, especially in the SaaS world, I could see this being the case, right? Where all the development's being done, all the customer service is being done, and then you just have a human being that's gatekeeping everything.
Right.
It's wild. Tougher in manufacturing, but I mean, manufacturing, 4.0 or industry 4.0 and lights out manufacturing is already occurring. So
Yeah, load a bar feeder up on a Friday night and come back Monday morning to a bunch of palletized finished product. Yeah, no humans involved. Lights out. Diana, what are you seeing in the space of commercial building, architecture, real estate, all of the worlds that you touch? What are you
Yeah,
seeing?
the service side of my type of industry is, I think, a little behind on some of this. Was it just? I feel like we were just talking about this. Maybe it was our virtual meeting, which or our chapter meeting we just had Wednesday, talking about there's still a lot of skepticism and resistance to using any of these tools in design, right? Like with a capital D, laying out someone's floor plan, designing what their building is going to look like. But and we don't, yeah, it's like not quite exactly the same model when it comes to customers trying to reach us. Like my clients would never talk to an agent instead of talking to me about what carpet they want to use in their building, so sometimes it's hard for me to make the mental leap. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm part of the group, right? So that it is certainly coming for us too.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, are you and your customers part of the last holdout? Is someone going to
Maybe.
jump into your industry that's going to eat your lunch with the type of efficiency and cost and innovation and productivity that you'll find yourself upside down and in the wrong position, unprepared?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's
It's
that's
possible.
that's that's the fear. That's the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so developing this EFM capability as a skill, obviously, you got to understand where you are now and start to understand, where your ecosystems are headed, right? So start to identify where you see increased connectivity in the next, 6, 12, 18 months. So you might not be there right now, Diana, but if you would stop and think and say, okay, if you do a SWOT analysis, right, where are some of our threats and some of our opportunities? What if AI could jump into that space? It sounds implausible, impractical, no one would do it, but what if, right? What kind of exposure does that leave our company in, right? So identify the gaps in your systems and processes, try to understand what those gaps be, what those impacts could be in the connections, that are vulnerable or that are at risk, and then begin to model what the future ecosystems. So some of your strategic work as a COO might begin to start modeling future ecosystems and start to think about getting ahead of the curve. I'm saying 5 years. In 40 years, we went from 1,000 Cray supercomputers to every kid in America holding that much power in their hands. Don't underestimate what AI is going to do in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when there's going to be 1,000 iPhone worth of computing power in the next person's hands, right? The next teenager's hands. And then, lastly, I think this is important to all of us, and that is thinking about ourselves individually. Are we prepared to challenge our mental models? Are we prepared to challenge what has made us successful as leaders, as COOs? Our bread and butter. Are we ready to challenge those mental models? Are you prepared to challenge your paradigms? Because I think we're all going to need to. Even selecting carpet type and color, Diana. AI is coming for that selection tool. Our son is getting married in November, and my daughter is part of the bridesmaids, and my wife, of course. We've got to have the mother of the groom dress or whatever that is. There's dress services now that will send you a bunch of dresses to try on at your house, and you try them on and send back the ones that's like $10 or whatever. Some of you probably know that dress shop, but who saw that coming? Diana, that might be your competitor, right? Someone that can utilize speed and technology and take the financial downside or upside risks to play that bet, right? I still have to go and get a tux somewhere at a store, so I don't have that advantage of trying a bunch of tux. All right, number 3, moving on here. So decision architecture, I really think this might be probably the one most important skill for all of us to start to think about. Sean Patterson wrote a blog article for us a few years ago, and I'm going to read to you what he said. He said, this was in regards to how AI is going to optimize much of our activities, but he says, judgment is different. Judgment is knowing which approach fits this specific situation. It's reading between the lines in a client conversation. It's understanding the organizational politics and history that explain why the technology or technically correct solution won't actually work here. It's recognizing patterns from failures you've seen before that don't show up in any documentation. You know the unwritten rules. You know why the last 3 change initiatives failed, even though they looked good on paper. You know which person's opinion actually matters in a decision, regardless of where they are on the org chart. You know that when this particular client says they want, quote unquote, innovation, they actually mean make it look different, but don't change how we work, right? Raise your hand if those are some of your superpowers right now as a COO, right? The context. So my definition when we talk about future leadership skills is about decision architecture. In this architecture is where the business senses, acts, learns, and adapts, decides in an age when data and technology provide almost unlimited options. So, think of decision architecture as your operating system for judgment and decisions. So I want you to start to think of your skill sets as your own personal operating system. We're a long ways away from the AS400 and the beginnings of computers in the workplace. Now we're shifting to our own selves becoming operating systems. So think about what actually happens when the skill set that we've all gotten so good at, right? The interpreting of data, the analysis of data, those things. What's it going to be like? And some of us already experience it when AI can deliver 3 or 5 or 10 recommended solutions or courses of actions in a matter of seconds, right? This is what I'm talking about. Who decides what AI decides and how you decide what AI decides? I think this might be the most powerful skill of all. And I think it's going to be probably the biggest change in the COO role. And that is not just running operations, but designing the architecture through which the business senses, decides, acts, learns, and adapts. So will you develop a gut feel for when to trust AI recommendations? And what will set your decision capabilities apart from your competitors who have all of the same AI tools at their disposal? So I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Are you beginning to think about how you're going to judge and decide in the future? Do you think it's going to be different than how you're thinking and deciding, judging right now? Good, Rob.
Yeah, so I've always approached things with why as the first question. I want to understand the motivation behind all of it. I think that's still going to continue to be the most important question. And I don't know any other way to do it, really. I always think about the why first, as opposed to the what or the how, and then structure those other questions around that. But maybe the what and the how gets outsourced to the AI, and we just get to check on the back end. But I think the why is still the most important thing to start with.
Yeah. So what you're expressing there is what I say is the first step to developing decision architecture skills, and that is start by beginning and understanding, documenting your own kind of personal judgment and decision-making operating system, because this might be one of the few skill sets remaining for us to compete out there in the age of AI, is our own personal operating systems, right? So when you think about what is judgment and in decision making. You see the diagram there. So judgment is having the ability to estimate and predict the character of unknown events, and deciding or decision making is about choosing among alternatives, and all of that flows through the context of what's outside your mind, and then also your existing ways of thinking, your thinking models. So I say, in order to develop this much needed skill for the future, is to start where you are now. Take time to stop and think about, how do I decide? What are my filters? What are my models? How do I decide context? And then start to ask yourself, well, how am I going to decide what AI decides? How am I going to decide when to accept what AI is telling us? Especially as the pressure ramps up to start to adopt more AI solutions in our workplace, right? Step 2, start to identify in general how your organization makes decisions, right? Do you have a decision-making process and approval process? How is that going to be affected by AI? How is AI going to influence that? Ask yourself what happens when all of these choices and inputs and ecosystems start to rapidly expand during our AI journey. Are our processes scalable around decision making when data is coming at us like at light speed? That's what you're going to be challenged with. Did anyone see this coming? Did anyone have this on a radar screen? Y for yes, N for no. No, 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 no. I'm telling you, it's coming. And this goes back to when I first started this call, right? Well, I have the luxury of listening to you all. I hear your pains. I see what's going on. You're in that firefight day in and day out. I have the luxury of standing back and seeing what's coming, doing the research, talking with COOs outside of the CO forum, CEOs, technologists. And I can tell you, our resumes are soon going to become a version of our personal operating system. We'll talk about that in a second as we start to wrap up. Start to identify those gaps between current state and potential future state. Start looking at 6-month, 12-month horizons. That might become outdated. You're going to find out pretty quickly whether 6 months is too long to be thinking. It might be 3 months. But start to build processes and systems to close those gaps. Just start to nail down the company's judgment, decision making, or operating system. I think that's going to be key. All right.
Chuck,
So
just time check for you. You got 2 minutes.
what time is it? Oh, it's 2 minutes. All right,
you got 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. All right, we're going to wrap things up. So the good thing is that I have the luxury of getting your attention again in the future. So if I have to do that, I will. Just a few things I want you to think about, and that is right now, to close these skill gaps as COOs, time is not on your side. I'm telling you, it is coming fast, the changes that are happening. And so I need you to really think about where you're spending your time, right? I'm going to leave you with a couple last thoughts here, and that is own your calendar, own your day, own your time, right? If your company is not allowing you to invest time in your own personal development, to slow down, to start to think about those big things, those big skills and those trends, then they're shooting themselves in the foot, right? I would say time is not on their side either. The simple tools, obviously, we had Prasant Nair from Double Gemini talk about analyzing your personal day, where you're spending your time, and emails and interruptions and actual work. Talk about getting into the zone. And a real simple tool I would encourage all of you to do today after this call sometime, or maybe over the weekend, and that is do a start, stop, continue exercise. Every year we start accumulating more and more activities and tasks, and nothing comes off. I want you to do a start, stop, continue activity. Those things that aren't adding value, that aren't helping you prepare for the future, that the customers aren't demanding, kill them. Don't hand them off to somebody else, just kill them. Continue what is adding value, preparing you for the future, and start making time for those things that you need to begin to do to prepare. Because like I said, time is coming to us quickly, or coming at us pretty quickly in the age of AI. Lastly, if you believe that the role is going to drastically change in the next 5 years, I say lean in on your peer groups. if you think about your own personal operating system, you need to rapidly pick up some skill sets. You've got skills, but you need skill M. We've got a peer agent network that you can plug yourself into. Share your other skills with someone that may have a deficiency in, and then begin to pick up those skill sets through your peers. And I think one day we're going to have what's called a superhuman operating system. This is going to be our fight, our pushback against AI. This is going to be all of our peer agent networks, human agent networks, all coming together to battle AI. That's what our future is going to be rapidly hurtling to. I want you to all be prepared. But until then, plug into your peer agent chapter, start upgrading your personal operating system. So with this, that is the end of the presentation. I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you had a chance to stop and think and ponder some things, and please carry on with that thinking beyond our time today. I'd love to get some feedback from you all. Please, if you would, respond to the survey. If you want to dig into any one of these topics in a little deeper fashion, I would love to do that. We could set something up at a future date. Definitely share all the material. I think we went through it pretty quick. I didn't see anyone fall asleep on their living room floor, so that might have been a good thing. But anyways, thank you all again. It's been great. Thank you for taking time out. Have a wonderful weekend.